Hey guys, this is Rudy coming at you live from Palm Beach in Florida. It is Monday. It is October the 31st. October is in the books. It's finished. And well, it's not quite finished yet. It's only 3 p.m. in the afternoon Eastern time. But what a fun-filled month the month of October was as it relates to one of my favorite stocks, Petrobras. So today, Petrobras is sort of the proverbial elephant in the room. And I thought we should take a few minutes just to talk about Petrobras because many people are already asking me, Mr. Roxy, what do we do now? Do we sell Petrobras? Do we get out of this? What's happening with Petrobras? What's next? Well, the simple answer to that question is who knows, right? Time will tell. And unfortunately, as I have said many times before, time in the market is much better than trying to time the market. At the same time, we have seen, you know, presidents come and go, including, for instance, in the United States, Trump to Biden, and the sky didn't fall, and we're not all wearing blue caps. And now we saw a change in Brazil, which is Bolsonaro to Lula. Who knows what's going to happen with that? So let's take a look at one of my favorite stocks here. It's Petrobras. I know quite a number of you are invested in Petrobras as well with me. So let's talk a little bit about this one and see how we go and what we can find out together about what to do next with Petrobras. So in the first place, we can see that you can now buy Petrobras for under $13. It's kind of cheap. How cheap? Well, I'll show you in a minute. Volume for today, a heavy trading day. Well, when it's a heavy trading day, one of two things are happening. A lot of people are selling, running away because they don't want to have any affiliation with Petrobras because there's a new leftist president. And on the other hand, a lot of people will be jumping in, taking a contrarian view and saying, well, now is a perfect time to get into Petrobras and open a new position. I would not do that, not yet. As I've said in my previous videos on Petrobras, now is not a good time to open a position. If you are already in a position with Petrobras, that's a different story, but we can talk a little bit more about that as we go on. Why is it moving? Well, according to Bazinga says Petrobras, its shares are trading lower after JP Morgan downgraded the stock from overweight to neutral and lowered its price target from $20 to $14. Well, that's quite a downgrade, $20 to $14. Of course, $14 is about 10% above where we are trading right now. And many people would say, hey, I'll take a 10% uptick in the stock price along with the very rich dividend that Petrobras pays. But are they going to continue paying the dividend? We don't know the answer to that one either. So let's dig a little bit deeper. A quick overview of the company shows us that Petrobras is a super major with a market cap of around $84 billion right here in the middle of your screen. You can see that. On the left-hand side, you can see it's sort of sitting in the middle of its 52-week range. Man, this would have been a sweet deal at 948 if you had timed the market well. As I just said, time in the market is better than trying to time the market. But if you got lucky and you bought Petrobras for like $9 something, sweet deal. How about the PE ratio? It's under 3. This remains today the least expensive or cheapest, if you prefer, super major energy company that you can buy right now. Ironically, right at the bottom in the middle of the screen, it says short interest 2.45%. Only 2.5% of the float is currently being shorted. So no one is brave enough to actually short Petrobras at around $13. That doesn't necessarily imply that people think it's a great long, but at the same time, you know, you can always look at the shorts. If a lot of people are piling into the shorts, then you can say, well, we're expecting this thing to go down and go down some more. If you look at the graph on the right-hand side of the screen, well, that doesn't look too bad. Despite the huge ups and downs and the swings in the market over the last year or so, this is a one-year graph, big, peaks and valleys. The indices, the two indices that I've tracked you with the graph is the light blue line, the Dow Jones Industrial Index, and the purple line is the S&P 500. Well, like most energy companies, Petrobras has very easily outperformed the two of these major indices year to date. So what's happening? Brazil stocks fell broadly early before recovering a bit on Monday. Well, it fell a lot early this morning before the market opened. The futures had Petrobras down about 8-9%. At the time I'm recording this, which is, as I said, around 3 p.m. Eastern time on Monday. Petrobras was down about 4%, so it had recovered sort of half of that early morning tumble that the pajama traders were trying to impose on us. PBR tumbled pre-market and amid concerns that Lula will redirect Petrobras capital towards social needs away from profit and shareholder returns. You have to see about that because we don't know. Petrobras is the largest oil and gas outfit in South America and produces approximately 2.7 million barrels of oil equivalent per day, which is more than 2 times my favorite stock and yours, which is Oxy. Or is it still my favorite? I'll tell you in the next video. In Q2, Petrobras earnings grew 34% to $1.66 per share, while revenue exploded 65% to $32.8 billion. It also currently has a dividend yield of 46%. Can it maintain a dividend yield of 46%? I doubt it very, very much. The dividend yield as a percentage is expressed based on the dollar value of the dividend yield as a fraction of the stock price. So when you have a dividend yield of 50%, then the dividend is about $6 because the stock's trading at about $12. Can Petrobras continue to pay $6 on an annualized basis in dividends? Well, I don't know. I'm not too sure you can maintain a dividend of 46%, whatever the percentage is. One of two things will have to happen there. Either the dividend gets cut, which is possible with Lula winning the presidential election, or otherwise the stock price suddenly spikes. And because it's expressed as a percentage, the 46% suddenly becomes 25%, which would still be incredibly high, but much more affordable than 46%. Year to date, Petrobras is up 75%. So if you've been in Petrobras like I have for this year, you've done pretty good. Plus, if you've reinvested the dividends, you've done even better. So you can take a little bit of a knock when it comes down to presidential elections and volatility. The last week was not good for Petrobras, and today, of course, is not good either. Most of the current volatility is driven not so much due to the energy prices, but more due to or related to the presidential elections. Lula first served as president of Brazil from 2003 to 2010. During that time, Petrobras developed large new oil reserves. Petrobras is approximately 70% E&P, and the 30% or so is development, and the rest, so that's 90%, and then the rest is just little bits and pieces. So we'll have to see how that works and what they do. Because we don't know, right? And I'm just being honest. If I knew something, I would probably share it with you, but I don't. Nobody does. I'm not even sure at this moment in time, right now, just now, after a few hours as president of the country, I'm not even sure that Lula is absolutely confident that he knows what to do next. We do know that he intends to keep Petrobras state-owned. On October 3rd, Lula failed to receive enough support in the first round of the election, and as a result, Petrobras shares shot up. Well, obviously, I think the market felt that the status quo had a good chance of being still in place towards the end of the month in the runoff election, to be honest. So did I. I actually thought that in the runoff, Bolsonaro would actually sort of eke out a victory. Didn't happen. I have no skin in the game. I only have skin in the game when it comes to Petrobras. So, I want what's good for my investments, but who knows what's happening going forward. I don't have a crystal ball and I cannot predict, but I can share information with you. Reuters reported on Friday, so it's just 3 days ago, that Lula now plans to introduce expansive environmental and climate change legislation. Oh dear. Well, I suppose he has to appease his Green Party element. He's got to give him something. I'm not sure exactly what that might look like or what he could offer them. His proposals include reforms to Brazil's tax code. Okay, well, that doesn't necessarily impact me directly, with the goal of pushing the country toward a more climate-friendly economy, whatever that means, because we all live in the same climate. What happened before? Because sometimes history is a good indicator of what will happen in the future. Well, under Lula's first term, 2003 to 2007, Petrobras did very well, thank you. And in the second period that Lula was president, Petrobras took a huge crash in 2008, but this was less or had less to do with Petrobras and more to do with the global recession, the financial crisis of 2007, 8, 9, 10. So that sort of incredibly steep downward crash there had less to do with Lula and more to do with the macro elements impacting Petrobras. We see the same thing happen to Bolsonaro, basically, with the pandemic, right? So you can see these massive drops. This was the financial crisis of 2008, and this massive drop here is Bolsonaro's reign during the time of the COVID pandemic. And then, of course, under Dilma, Petrobras did not have a good time. But actually, to be fair, to be honest, under Lula and under Bolsonaro, Petrobras actually did mostly okay. President Lula is ex-Workers' Party, and he's been more vocal about using state-run firms to help boost the economy. Those are vague statements. They are sort of motherhood statements, so we'll have to wait and see once again, unfortunately, what that means. Petrobras could embark on a fresh cycle of investment in lower return assets, such as refineries. Well, lower returns mean lower shareholder value at the end of the day, so we'll need to watch closely. And from my side, I'll try and keep you updated as best I am able to do so as I retrieve news from that marketplace in this emerging market investment that we have. I don't think Petrobras is worth zero under a Lula government. Well, zero would be quite a number. Investors are aware of his comeback, is unlikely to represent a return to those Dilma years, which were arguably not very good. But we do expect a higher level of political interference, said Leonardo Rufino. He is the investment manager at Montoro Capital in the Rio. A Lula administration is perceived to be comparatively more committed to an ESG agenda, said Alberto Ramos from Goldman Sachs. What exactly is an ESG agenda? Well, I don't really know because, to be quite honest, there is no such thing. Well, here's your man, President Lula, and you guys can tell me in the comments what you think you should do with Petrobras right now. So just a couple of points here, a couple of comments. So ESG is environmental, social, and governance. These things are not the same. So you cannot use three different metrics or benchmarks in order to measure one company. It's extraordinarily difficult. You can have a situation where a company scores incredibly well on social and governance and very poorly on the environment and still ends up with a good score. Conversely, you could have a company that scores incredibly well on the environment, but very poorly from a social and governance point of view and get a bad score. So when you take three different sort of benchmarks or metrics as a criteria, you're always going to end up with a mixed bag of results, and it's completely meaningless in the greater scheme of things. So about Petrobras specifically, I have quite a large position in Petrobras. It's not my largest in terms of energy stocks. It's probably about fourth or fifth, but it is quite a large position, and I'm holding that position. I'm not selling. I have no need to sell. Right now, as I've shared with you during this presentation, Petrobras is up 75% year to date. I've been reinvesting my dividends, so I have a nice little buffer or a hedge in terms of my Petrobras position. So I have no interest in selling. Would I buy more? Maybe not at $12.89. Or would I buy more if it drops even lower? Possibly, for sure. If it drops below $10 a share, I might snag myself some more cheap Petrobras stock. So I'm not buying. I'm holding, and I'm not selling. I have no need to sell. I'm not day trading. I'm in Petrobras for the long haul. It is still right now, just now, as I'm speaking to you, the cheapest super major energy company you can buy. And despite the decline in the energy prices and things like that, Petrobras is still actually sitting quite pretty, despite the volatility that the presidential election has caused and probably will cause over the next few weeks or even months. If your timeline, like mine, is maybe 3 years or so, you should be okay. So guys, let me know what you think in the comments. Look forward to interacting with you. Tell me what you think about Petrobras. Is it a buy, a sell, or a hold? Talk to you soon. Bye-bye.